Hello and welcome to your in-depth horoscope forecast for September. This is for the Sun or the Ascendant. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I'd be honoured if you did so now. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. That means every time I release a video, you'll get an alert. Now also, if you'd like to ascend above zodiac sign astrology and embrace natal astrology based on your time, date and place of birth, please check out my special offer of a 12-month forecast and a character analysis and get 30% off. Please see the link beneath this video for more information. Hello Aquarius and welcome to your monthly horoscope for September. What a year it's been for us Aquarians. The two planets which govern Aquarius of Saturn, the traditional ruler, and Uranus, the higher octave ruler, have of course been in that quarrel which really started to come to an end on the 22nd of June, but then they were causing mischief in their relationship with other planets. So as we enter this new month, where are we up to in the process? Well, the Sun and also the passionate energies of Mars start this month in the 8th house. Now the 8th house is very much about transitions. It's a kind of scorpionic energy, so it's deep, and it can be to do with understanding the more psychological realm, and deep diving into ourselves to understand how we interact as human beings. Can be to do with more psychic phenomenon, anything to do with the occult. It can also in a more practical way be to do with resources, so anything to do with our physical reality, so money, savings, investments, pensions, legacies, property transactions, they're all possible. And in the first 10 days of this month, the Sun is forging a really helpful link to Uranus. Now Uranus of course is in the 4th house, home, family, emotions, shaking things up, has been doing so since the middle of May 2018 through to the middle of November 2018, came back into the sign of Taurus March the 7th 2019, and it's been rock and roll since then really, particularly if you're born or have personal planets at the start of Aquarius, the first 10, initially 10 degrees, and more latterly the first half of Aquarius, the first 15 degrees of Aquarius, has been broadly affected by Uranus. So Uranus is a restless influence, so you've probably wanted to change where you live or moved altogether. It may not have been entirely your own choice, or it may have been. It just depends on your unique circumstances. But Saturn in the sign of Aquarius is about compressing our lives down into a narrower range of interests and strands that is more reflective of what's truly essential. So if, like me, you've been doing an awful lot of decluttering and becoming less dependent on some of the possessions that used to be important, not that I've ever been particularly materialistic, but even like clearing out paperwork has actually been very cathartic this year, because it creates emotional as well as physical space. And as Uranus forges this very helpful alliance to the Sun in the first 10 days, the first third of this month, I think you can use the change agenda of the 8th house, particularly around business and finance, to reimagine how you do things. It could be around home work, it could be about a personal home-based business, a business that's based in the community, the 4th house being your immediate environment. It could be to do with technology, of course, because Uranus governs that as well. But equally, it could be a much more spiritual change that is evolving at the start of this month, because Uranus can be about shedding what's no longer good for us. It's about the truth. The higher mission of Aquarius is what Uranus is about. Saturn, the other ruler, is much more about the upholding of traditionality. And Aquarius people can often have real affection for past connections, comradeship, friendships. A friendship with an Aquarius that's deeply held can be one for life, I feel. So Uranus is shaking up some of the everyday or emotional reality, but in a very constructive way can bring through some new beginnings this month, and that's very, very exciting. But equally, Mars also in the 8th house, that's very sensual. The 8th house, Scorpionic energy, remember, Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio, so this is about desire. So Aquarius people have a reputation for coolness, detachment, and not really wanting to get too up close and personal. This is absolutely rubbish. Aquarius people have a code of conduct, I think. Not every Aquarius person upholds that code of conduct, but has a potential. Every zodiac sign can bump along the bottom with the dark stuff or really reach into the stars. And when Aquarius people are reaching into the stars, it's very much being very truthful and honest, even if sometimes it's hard to hear what they say or what other people say to us. But I think Mars in the 8th house does connect to desire. So whether your desire is to do better financially, nothing wrong with that at all. It's the way you go about it that's important. Or if it is about having the type of relationship which is much more exciting, vital, but also transforming, that's possible too to unfold this month. Now, because Saturn is forging a very positive link to Venus, and Mercury and Venus, by the way, are in your 9th house as this month begins, the sister air sign of Libra, very much about adventure, widening horizons. But these two are the communicator planets in terms of relating. So how we relate to others. So we could be gaining some new knowledge or advice. Someone actually may be a wise sage, whether it's a lawyer, a financial advisor, a realtor, a estate agent in the UK. Some kind of advisor could be critical at the start of this month, and someone could be very, very helpful in that role because of Venus's very constructive link to Saturn in our sign from the 3rd through to the 7th. But from the 3rd to the 9th, Venus forges a much less positive alliance with Pluto. And it could be that somebody presents some information or presents an opportunity that seems to be absolutely loaded with possibility, but there could be a real catch. So use the scrutinizing energy that's a big part of your nature to dive deep, particularly with the help of the Sun and Mars through to the 15th, because Mars is going to be moving, and really, don your detective's mac and check out the legitimacy of what you're being told. It could be very helpful to you. But the new moon on the 7th points towards change coming into your life. Now, the 8th house can be an area of our life where things come to an end, and therefore that creates the space for something new to happen. So see this 8th house new moon as a chance to revitalize things and bring freshness in, and I think you will do extremely well with it. However, it is true that on the 10th, Venus moves into the sign of Scorpio. But this can be really, really wonderful. Of course, Scorpio is very passionate, and the 10th house for you is very much to do with your career, how you link with the wider world. And you could start to attract attention in terms of how you manifest your talents, particularly if they're more creative. You're someone who works in the arts or performance or marketing, or you're a creative in itself, you're a writer, or you in some way do installations, whatever it is, you can gain more recognition from Venus's move through this sign. But it also can be a time when a relationship could become a bit more serious. If you're wanting to take that next step towards moving in with someone, getting engaged, even getting married, Venus in the 10th house could be a critical part of the process. But it's important to know that in week 3, Venus does go into an opposition with Uranus. So something razzle-dazzle or unexpected could happen in week 3, and it could be around your love life, but who it is and how it happens may make your pulse race, but also take you rather by surprise. But let's just wind back a little bit, because on the 15th, Mars is making its way into the sign of Libra, where it's going to be for 6 weeks. This is really good news for you. The 9th house energy that Libra represents is very much about being adventurous, independent, daring. Now, you understand independence and freedom innately because it's part of being an Aquarius, but it's also part of being a Sagittarius, and ninth house energy is very redolent of the sign of Sagittarius. But of course, Libra is about balance, it's about communication, and it's how we reach out to others. And your skills as a teacher, or your philosophies, or learning new philosophies are all possible over that 6-week period. But equally, it is true that on the 19th, Mercury in the same zone starts its shadow period. This could be a time when some information around a contract and agreement needs to be revisited. But don't see the whole Mercury retrograde cycle as only a threat. It can also be an opportunity for progress. Now, it goes retrograde in actuality on the 27th. The shadow period, it's starting to slow down. This is the degree that Mercury gets back to in October at the end of the retrograde. That's the significator of this point in the journey. So, what I would say is just check details very meticulously. But anything to do with travel could be potentially a little bit caught up in glitches. We can only be realistic about that. But the 20th does see a full moon. And balancing the ins and outgoings of our everyday resources, the second house where the full moon occurs, against our desire to transform our longer term prospects, the 8th house, is going to be the trick over the following 2 weeks. But the sun moves on the 22nd and we have the autumn equinox. And as the sun glides into the cardinal sign of Libra, so we start the 3rd cardinal phase or quadrant of the year. So this is a key point in the astral calendar. A time to really celebrate, particularly for you, because having the air triplicity is an opportunity for Aquarius people to flourish. It's all about expansion. For sure, Mercury in its shadow, then retrograde, is something that you need to be mindful of, just like I will be. But generally there's a sense of excitement, that things are opening up, that you're trying different things, you may be experimenting, learning different approaches. If you're able to get overseas, and that's totally dependent on COVID at that point, I think you'll want to seize the opportunity the best you can. But just be aware that Pluto is in a naughty right angle with Mercury for the last couple of weeks of this month. And when it comes to people's agendas, I would be a little bit cautious about what you're told, particularly around any kind of transactions. There could be someone who's lying in a deep kind of role and just cultivating your goodwill, but that's actually for their benefit, not necessarily yours. So just keep your guard up a little bit. But remember, Mars in the 9th house is going to see you quite dashing and, if necessary, quite rugged in defending your position. And if you love team sports or just getting stuck in, if you love running, cycling, or you're trying out on some kind of triathlon or something, Mars in the 9th house is right up your chandeliers. So it's a fascinating month, really, Aquarius. And in week 3, with the sun also linking very positively to Pluto, some deep changes can go on within your psyche. And if Pluto has been hard going for you since 2008, as it has, I feel, for many Aquarius people, and you've got planets right at the end of the sign of Aquarius, it means Pluto is right on them. So that's emphasizing a lot of change going on in your situation at the moment. And maybe the reality is altering for you. But I feel that accepting change is one of the big challenges in life. And being a fixed sign, Aquarius people have this duality, partly liking zany, unusual, innovative ideas, Uranus, partly loving the status quo. So the status quo is going to be challenged this month, particularly about where you live. But if you can embrace that opportunity to change, as you come to the end of this month, you're really going to be riding in the direction of excitement at full pelt. And I think it's going to be a fascinating journey for you and for me.